Okay, it is the top of the hour, and this is Frank Alio, and I'm going to be your host again today. Today, I have two guest speakers. I have Jean Gorlick and I have Virginia Hollings. Jean is a paralegal of sorts. She actually works and lives in the non-statutory realm, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And Virginia is an accountant, and of course, accounting is pertains to the statutory realm. However, she is also a patriot and works in the non-statutory realm as well. And that is the reason that we're going to be having this call today, because we're going to be thinking about how are we going to um, how are we going to restructure the company so that it's the most efficient for everybody concerned, everyone working with the company. So, Jean, would you like to say just a word or two about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm a young 66 years old. I have a master's degree plus 30 from intellectual places in Cambridge and Boston. I've homeschooled my children. They're both entrepreneurs and successful in their own right. And as Frank said, I'm sort of a paralegal. I have been doing my own legal work outside the statutory world and for my family for a long time. I'm excited to be here today, Frank. Thank you for the opportunity to help Easy Financial take on a new face.
Thank you very much. And Virginia, could you say a few words about yourself and your background?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Frank. I am also a 68-year young person. I have many adventures in my life. I have gone through school, gone through accounting, gone through the military, came out, went back into accounting. I'm at one place now for 23 years, and it's like second nature. Numbers is my game, and I am a true bean counter. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, so we've prepared a list of questions, and that's here they are right here. And I'm going to ask Jeff, are you seeing my screen, Jeff, and what are you seeing?
No, we're seeing the same screen we've been seeing for the last 10 minutes.
Okay, so this they have changed Zoom in a way that is not pleasant to me. I don't like what they've done to it. So let's see if this makes any difference. What are you seeing on my screen now, Jeff?
I believe your screen now. Your screen is showing.
Is it a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And your picture's off to the side. I don't see anything else.
Okay. I'm going to.
There it is. Looks right to me now.
Okay, you should have a full screen at this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. All right. I'm going to minimize that, try to get you out of the way. And so I guess this question is these are the questions that we're going to be asking and we're going to be exploring, so you can see the questions. You know what we have to do before anything? I need to mute all and then unmute just Jean. Oh, wait a minute. Mute all. One. Mute all. Yes. Unmute. Jean, you might have to unmute yourself. And Virginia, you may need to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm moving that out of the screen, hopefully. There you go.
Can you hear me now, Frank?
I hear you, Jean.
Thank you.
And Virginia, okay, you're dialed in on the telephone, so *6 unmutes you and *6 mutes you. Okay, well, with that said, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be thinking about the alternatives to the statutory world. There are many advantages to living outside of the statutory world, and one of them, a great one, is tax benefits. And I'm not going to get into it, but I'm going to have Gene, who's much more of an expert at it than I am, talk about it. So, Gene, what are the other options are there besides LLC, C Corp, S Corp, and trust? What else is available?
Okay, those are all statutory entities, names of how companies are organized under the rules and regulations of the corporate United States of America and the states and the local. There are at least 3, to my knowledge, that I have experience that are not in the statutory world. One is called a Massachusetts Business Trust, which is not the same trust as people will call what they hear from the lawyers these days. A second is a pure constitutional trust. Again, not the same trust as a lawyer would tell you about today. And the third, which I'd like to focus on today, is a contractual company.
Okay. Yep. We can do this. All right. So, why is it necessary to put your company in an LLC?
Well, as I just said, any of those, the S Corp, the C Corp, the LLC, any of those statutory names, all anticipate that you will do that, but they don't tell you that, because you want government benefits and perks. They are all public companies. They are not private. And so it's not necessary to put your company in an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, etc., unless you want to be involved in the regulation by the government.
So,
Thank you.
So let me just throw this one out. You know that I've been in banking for 36 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things almost inevitably that if you're looking for business funding or to fund a business, they're going to ask you for your LLC or your articles of incorporation, and they're also going to ask you for your EIN. And if you don't provide it, in most cases, you're simply not going to get the money. So, and one of the things we're doing right now today is the $10,000 line of credit, and that is absolutely mandatory on that. So, can an LLC do business with a contractual company?
Yes, it can. It operates with that contractual company through a contract. But I need to also say another point that you made me think of, Frank, which is when you just said that the LLCs in the banking world all get the money and the lines of credit, there are 2 points to consider there for everyone listening. Money comes in 2 ways. It comes in fiat currency and it comes in alternative forms, which we'll talk about a little later. And credit is something that's issued. I'll buy you a hamburger on Tuesday. I mean, I'll get the hamburger today if I can pay you on Tuesday. And that's not how I operate. I operate a spade is a spade, and now is the moment. If I want something now, I need to afford it now and not buy it on credit. So the corporate statutory system runs on credit, and the outside the statutory system does not necessarily.
Okay. All right. And the whole world is, well, all of the United States is living in that statutory world. Easy Financial is considering switching over to become a contractual company, but we do want to let you know that you will, as a statutory company, be able to do business with what used to be the parent company, Easy Financial, let's call that a parent company. You'll be able to do business, but not as a direct entity, but on a contractual basis.
Yes.
There you go. That's just what I wanted to get out, that they'll be able to work as a contractual basis. Okay, so how does one work within the structures of a contractual company?
One works independently as a contractor. And think about the word contract. It comes from con, which means with, and tracto, tractara, which means work. So when you work with your own self, with your own tools, your own resources, your own money, your own ideas, you are a contractor. You are independent if no one regulates that. For an example, in a contractual company, you would set your own hours, probably like you do, Frank. You would figure out what it is you want to do and you would do it. If you're not in a contractual situation and you're in a statutory situation, you are called an employee. An employee does what the boss says on the boss's time schedule, with the boss's tools, with the boss's direction. Does that answer that question, Frank?
Yeah, that answers that question. And up until this point, everyone who has worked with Easy Financial has worked as an independent rep anyway. They've worked, so there's no real major change there or no structural change there. They've worked as an independent rep. They worked as a,
Hold on.
okay,
No, and I have to say no because the government, I've said it to you before, Frank, I'm old enough to remember that song, anything you can do, I can do better. Well, the government has co-opted everything that the human beings in the constitutional realm can do, and they've given it their own names, which is why I said the pure trust and the business trust or trusts today are not the same as the trust before, because the government has interfered and taken or co-opted or usurped them. When you say that the people in Easy Financial are independent contractors, so there won't be much change, there's going to be a huge change. They will be true independent contractors, not statutorily described independent contractors.
okay. I meant that, even though, see, I'm learning. So guys, I'm learning with you, and I'm understanding a little at a time. So as a 1099 person, you're not an employee, you would be operating outside of the control, let's use that word,
Okay.
outside of the control of Easy Financial. So in that respect, I don't tell you when to go to work. I don't tell you how many hours to work. I don't tell you to punch a clock. And in that respect, you'll be the same. In the respect that Gene is talking about, it will be vastly different. So let's go ahead with that.
Could I just add a moment to that,
Yes,
Frank?
sure.
The difference in what I was trying to emphasize here is in the amount of relationship involvement by the regulators. I'm trying to make it very clear and very pointed for your audience.
Okay. Well,
I'll give you an example. If I'm hired by a public school because I had a license as a teacher, a formal license from the state as a teacher, I'm told what time to show up to work, when I have to go to meetings, how many kids I have in a classroom, what the curriculum is, how I have to present it, how I have to discipline. They give me all the rules and regulations. That's a statutory contractor. But if I work as a private tutor for a family whose kid is not surviving in the public school, I might go to that kid's house, I might meet him at the library, I might do it virtually, and what I use for a curriculum is up to my professional expertise based on what I understand that child needs. That's a truly contractual independent contractor. In the first situation, the state pays me with an employee paycheck every week, every month, whatever. But in the second, it's paid by task from the parent, however I want to accept it. Gold, beans, corn, I don't know, whatever I want. Money, USD, that's kind of different.
So isn't an independent contractor also regulated?
In the contractual corporation, in the constitutional world, no, they're not regulated. But in the statutory world, yes, they're very regulated, highly regulated.
Okay. So how does a contractual contractor differ from the other types of companies?
As I said, it differs in the amount of involvement of the relationship. In a statutory system or paradigm, the government regulates and imposes and looks into and needs to know everything. In a constitutional, contractual world, the government has really no right to know. It's private as opposed to the statutory public.
Well, a lot of people like that, and there are some states that when you set up a statutory LLC, like in the state of Delaware or the state of Wyoming, they don't want to, or they won't report back to the government. And a lot of companies, even though it's not their home state, will do business in those states for that very reason. But what you're saying, Gene, is our people can be anywhere they live and they can still join us and enjoy the same
Freedom.
freedom that these guys go to Delaware or Wyoming or Nevada, because those states don't report back to the government. Okay.
The states may not report back, Frank, but that LLC still has to fill out an annual, whatever it is, report, accounting, bean counting. And when you work for yourself as a true constitutional independent contractor, it's totally private. Nobody needs to know how much you get paid an hour. You don't have to tell anybody. If you get a 1099, it doesn't get filed because the person that you work with, yourself or for, isn't obliged to file.
Okay. All right. So, we're considering becoming a contractual company that is easy financial. And can a contractual company get in any kind of trouble with the government?
No, because contractual companies are separate from outside of the domain, the bubble of the government, whether it's state, local, or federal. I have operated through a contractual company for almost 20 years now. Bought and sold real estate. I've worked as I said, a licensed tutor from the state, but privately in a contractual obligation with individual families, parents, and I've paid all the taxes I needed to pay.
Very well, very well put. I don't think my recording recorded that number, but okay. So what will happen to me if I go with Easy Financial as a contractual company?
For your audience, if folks go with the refaced Easy Financial that you're considering, if you go that way, they will receive all the monies they earn in exchange for the labor they put in. There will be no taxes assessed or taken. Most people are used to, is it FICA or Social Security tax or employment tax? Most people are used to having a chunk of their money taken out of their paycheck. And because they sign up to be an employee with a Social Security number and so forth, they voluntarily commit, whether they know it or not, that the government has a right to interfere in that relationship between them and the company. So you'll get all the money. You put in whatever time you need to, you got to get the task done.
And then whatever funds are pertaining to that transaction, those are your funds.
Lock, stock, and barrel.
Okay. All right. Can I opt out of Easy Financial contractual company if I wish?
Oh, absolutely. The contract, like most contracts, will have a way in, what you have to do, and a way out. You just have to follow whatever the agreement is on how to undo the contract for you.
So if there was an escape clause in the contract saying, I need to give you 30 days notice and then I'm out of here, that's it.
Or if you don't do the task at hand, if you're required to bring in, I don't know, 10 deals a month and you only bring in 5, then there's a negotiation and there's a way out.
Oh, so there's a way out for both.
Yep.
The client, what do we call these people? Specialist? Okay, so
Yep.
The specialist, so to put a label on it, if you were formerly a pro agent, your label would be changed from pro agent to specialist.
I
Now
believe that's where you're going.
okay,
You
so
haven't made a formal decision yet, but yes.
okay, so now I last week and the week before and maybe a couple of other times, I have announced that I'm going to be um, focusing my energies and my efforts on the people who produce. The people who produce are also known as pro agents or pro affiliates. So if we're changing that person's label to from pro agent or pro affiliate to specialist, I'm going to be focusing my energies and my efforts on the specialist, which was that middle layer. It's not the bottom layer, it's not the top layer, it's the middle layer. I'm going to be focusing my energies. Now, that specialist can bring on as many people as they want, do whatever they want, pay them whatever structure they want to pay them, and it really has nothing to do with me. Is that correct?
Correct. As an independent contractor, one would be allowed to, if they want to, get their own secretary. If they're not good at writing or answering the phone, they would be allowed to knock on anybody's door to market their specialty, whatever it is. You mentioned at the beginning bump cards. I'm going to use that just as an example as a specialty. If you're the bump card specialist, you market your own product whoever you like. But Frank, you also will be marketing on behalf of Easy Financial. So the idea is for enough people to learn the special procedures, I guess, that you offer, or platforms or programs, I don't know what you call it, the different programs, so that whether it comes in through you, through the webinars with your leaders on Wednesdays, or whether it comes in through the leaders on their own to you, it doesn't really matter. There may be a fee structure. You haven't decided yet on any of that, but they can work outside or inside the company. They are independent.
Okay. And for those people who absolutely love MLM, they can have however many levels deep they want. And for those people who hate MLM, they can have one level deep, and that's
Just
it.
them. Just
Okay.
them.
So, in other words, it's freedom.
Yes.
What you're talking about is freedom. Okay, that's good.
It's unregulated.
I like freedom. I like unregulated. All right. Will Easy Financial or Easy F, that's Easy Financial, allow anyone to be formally involved without the contractual company's connection, without a contract?
Yes, and you have not yet determined with us, as we're restructuring and refacing this company, what that will result in. But yes, you have come to the consideration that we all benefit when we hit more people. It benefits the people who need the services. It also benefits the people who offer the services, whether they are an independent contractor or they are you as the lead of the company.
Okay, so this question almost bounces back to question number 8. And I mentioned that I want my efforts and my energies to be focused, laser focused on the pro agents, but I didn't mention and the branch offices. So the pro agents and the branch offices, those people will have my ear. Those people will be able to contact me, and all the rest of the people will contact them. In other words, go ahead. Yes.
The pro agents, you call them pro agents. I use different lingo. I call them specialists. Those specialists that you select and you agree to contract with will be responsible for their office, their division, their wing, their specialty.
Their team, whatever. Okay.
Right. And so they will manage that completely on their own. However much they make or don't make is up to them. But there will be a contract of what they will be required to send to you under contract. But they won't, you just said that they will come to you. Well, you're also still going to do, in addition to lunch with those leaders, you're going to do general webinars on, are you in foreclosure? Do you need money? You know, I don't know how you phrase it. And
Okay.
gather people in.
Right. Okay, and because I'm not the one that will be wanting to talk to those people, that we call those in the formal world, we call them leads. So
Okay.
as those leads come in, those leads will be disseminated first to
Through you.
whoever starts, well, first to me, of course, and then
Yeah.
I will disseminate them out to people like the branch offices, which we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to come up with a new name for that word,
Yep.
and then the pro agents. And once I release that information to them, we will continue to follow up with that person and make sure that that person is completely satisfied. And
And the transaction is done.
if they want to get that $100,000 that everyone is looking for nowadays, they
Yep.
do it. If they want to get that COVID relief money, we'll do it. And we'll just be the ones at the top that will direct everyone, but we won't be the ones that will be working with the people.
The specialists in their offices will do that.
Specialists will be doing it, and the
Right.
specialists will be earning the money. Okay, that
Right.
sounds wonderful. I think everyone will agree with that. That the specialists deserve the money. They deserve to be able to pay them, whether I'm going off the reservation here, but if they want to pay somebody minimum wage, or if they want to pay somebody a commission, or if they want to pay somebody an hourly wage, it's totally up
Totally
to
up
them.
to them.
Freedom, complete freedom.
Can I jump down, Frank? Because you led right into the last question, or the next to the last question. How do I get paid in the CC way?
Well,
in
let's hang on for that. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and go to the next one, because
Okay.
we don't have that many questions left, and we're already at the end of the half hour, and I wanted to talk about something at the end. So, has anyone had prior experience with? I guess this is for outside people. Have anyone had prior experience with a contractual company? Are you referring to yourself, Gene, or
Myself and Virginia both have had experience, and I will give a little background to that. In the early 80s, maybe the late 70s, when this first started to rise up, this idea of contractual company, it had a different name. People understood there was a company, for example, in Texas, a very red state kind of, but there was a company in Texas that intercepted, for lack of a better word, a paycheck, an employee's paycheck, negotiated it, transacted it, cashed it, and gave the employee most of that paycheck. And that was called third-party vendor payment. And so this contractual company is a line between two dots. Right now, it's if you had a task to be done, if you wanted your porch built, I would build your porch. It would be you and me. You'd say, I want the porch so big, go to it, I want it done by a certain date, and it has to be safe. But right now, the government has to give a contractor, in the government's way, a license and supervise it with the Board of Health or the building inspector, and that's a very different model. I think I got off the track there.
I think you did. You lost me.
I've been teaching without supervision. I've been educating for a long time.
It was the shortest distance is a line between 2 points.
2 dots, yep.
The third point. All right. So, all right. Where can I read more information about contractual companies?
Well, you're not going to find a lot of it publicly available because it's a private concept. But I challenge anyone to read the IRS regulations to find a true contractual company. They won't find it because this is an old pre-statutory way of doing business. It started in the early days of farming when a farmer said, I will grow you, 10 dozen of corn, and in exchange you do this for me. And it was a barter system. After the barter system, the government started to grow. And advanced bartering came after pure bartering. And then the government stepped in the relationship. Again, it's that involvement of relationship. And they began to legislate how much one could exchange, services, goods, money, whatever, time, intellect. And as the legislation became more and more involved and heavier, the independent contractor, the true barter independent contractor who made his own deals for his own money, has been ruled out, which is why most people now are under employment, and when they don't have the jobs, like in COVID, all of a sudden they don't know what to do because people have lost sight of the old way of doing contractual company. I yield.
Wow, that's heavy duty stuff. Okay, so now you wanted to jump down to how do I get paid in a contractual way?
It's only going to be by contract, first off, not by the contract that everybody knows from the government standards. A true contract where two people sign it, and it's going to be paid in non-alternative United States dollars or not fiat currency. It's going to be paid in precious metal. Some people call it God's money, but it's through an exchange facility. It's not a bank. You are allowed, how you get paid is you can put in Federal Reserve notes, USD, and they get put into your column, your tally, and you can either have it kept in USD or exchanged like a barter, exchanged into an equivalent amount of gold or silver. So for your folks in your firm, your audience, the payment from the contractual company way would be their choice. They can get paid in USD through this facility, or they can get paid truly in gold or silver if they so choose. It's totally, they're independent. They pick what they need and what they want. Does that answer that question?
That's a fabulous way. How many people can say, oh, when I do work, I get paid in gold and silver? Not many.
Well, in the old days, the value of a dime was equated to a day's work for a laborer in the early history.
Okay.
A dime of silver, a silver dime.
A silver dime was a day's work. And in a biblical one, it was a penny for a day's work. But okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep, for you get a penny for a day's work.
Maybe that's why I'm hearing called God's money.
Okay, could be. All right, so how long would it take Easy Financial to restructure themselves so that we can begin working with people this way as a contractual company?
The exchange facility, the one we use in Utah, is absolutely legitimate, and all one has to do is sign up for an account. There's no SSN required. You just sign up and put some funds in your tally, put some money into your account. Whether you put in USD and you have it exchanged into silver or gold, it doesn't matter. How long will it take Easy Financial? This week we're having this general talk about contractual company to get people to start thinking about it. Next week, by next Thursday, if we have enough time with you, Frank, we'll have all the details hammered out so we can open on September 1st officially as a contractual company, if that's the way you're choosing to go.
And still, guys, don't get nervous, because hear the last sentence that she said. If that's the way that we choose to go. It doesn't mean that you have to go that way. As a matter of fact, I have Eloise on the call right now today. And for those people who do need to get funded in the statutory way, they do need to have an LLC. They do need to have an EIN. They need to have a driver's license and a voided check, those 4 items. And we have Eloise on the call that we will be having her to help you guys if you need yourselves to be set up as a business entity, or if your clients need to be set up as a business entity, because we're going to be straddling the fence. We're going to, Easy Financial, I believe, is going to be stepping on the contractual side of the fence, and then everyone else can be on the statutory side, so that you can receive the funds from the funding sources. But who here has heard that the Fed has been absorbed into the Treasury?
I have.
Me too. Anyone else, just unmute yourself for a minute and shout out, yes, I heard that.
I heard that from you, Frank, last week.
Okay. That's because we have to have our fingers on the pulse of money, because if you don't, you can find out the world has changed and you didn't even know it happened. All right, anyone else know that the Fed has been absorbed? Okay, now years ago, I used to, I'm going to call it preach, I used to have a 2 nights a week, a webinar on 2 nights a week, and I used to preach about the Federal Reserve and the system, or the creature from Jekyll Island. And that creature from Jekyll Island evolved into the Fed. The Fed means the Federal Reserve System. And I exposed back then that two things. It was not federal, it was a private organization, so it wasn't federal. And they actually didn't have any reserves. And all they needed to have is, well, let me
Paper and
give you
ink.
an example. Gene,
Mm-hmm.
if I had $100 in my pocket and I wanted to lend you some money, how much money could I lend you?
On the street when I met you, you could lend me $100 because that's all you had was one paper $100 bill.
Okay. Now, if I were the Federal Reserve, Gene, and I had $100 in my vault, how much could I lend you?
$900.
Well, I could lend you $1,000.
Okay.
The
I might.
$100 that I have, and 10 times more than that, or $1,000. I could lend you $1,000. Where did that money come from? It just came from thin air. Just
They fractionalize it. They loan it out
I
and make
wrote-
more of it.
I wrote you a check, and all of a sudden you had $1,000, and you were happy, and I
Mhm.
started collecting interest, not on the $100 bill, but on that $1,000 bill, and I, with a stroke of a pen, I created that out of thin air. That
Mhm.
was the
That's
Federal
correct.
Reserve System, and that system is been absorbed into the Treasury. So what does that mean to you and I today? Well, I'm not really sure, but many people are losing confidence in the Federal Reserve fiat money system, and they're turning toward a cryptocurrency and other commodities to escape the steady inflation. Well, these people mean well. This turn alternate, this turns into alternatives will put them at risk of incurring capital gains tax on every transaction. For example, if someone purchases a Bitcoin for $200 and then they spend that Bitcoin at $2,000 value, they would be liable for as much as 28% capital gains tax on that $1,800 increase. In the recent years, the IRS has become more aggressive in collecting this tax. So a lot of people thought Bitcoin was the alternative, and we're going to just jump right on that. But the government said, not so fast. So by offering accounts denominated in US silver and gold coin, and that's what we're going to be talking about in weeks to come. Since the time of President Reagan, the Treasury of the United States has minted US dollars in the form of gold and silver coins. And these coins are legal tender, just like Federal Reserve notes. This means that transactions made with gold and silver coins are not considered barter transactions and therefore cannot be taxed as such. That's where we're going with this, guys. A lot of people are really getting nervous. There's a lot of financial people that are really, really getting nervous about what's going to happen to the USD. And
Yeah.
if you're one of them, like I am, if you
I am too.
if you have your money in gold and silver, then an ounce of gold in biblical times and an ounce of gold in today's times buys the same amount of goods. It just the numbers have fluctuated with the currencies as they rose and fell. Over most currencies only last a short period of time. Our currency, the USD, has exceeded that lifespan. And so that means a lot of people in the banking industry and a lot of people in the financial markets are very, very concerned about it.
And Frank, the reality of that is why now, after the 2008 crisis, a lot of the foreclosures, the banks are selling them dirt cheap, and it's going to happen again in mass. in the next couple of months here, because the fiat currency is not worth what it used to be worth, and the banks have to bail themselves out by getting rid of the property and getting more dollars in their coffers.
So you think that you're actually getting one heck of a deal on that $300,000 home, when if you bought that $300,000 home back in the early 60s, 70s, or even 80s, it was only a $100,000 home back then.
Yep.
Okay, so you think you're getting a heck of a deal, and you are, you are, but in the reality, the home is still valued at what it was valued at in the 60s and 70s.
Before. Yep.
Now, what I'm trying to say is, had you paid for that home in gold in the 60s and 70s, and you sold that home for gold in the 2020s, the value would be the same. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So here's what our idea is. It's a simple idea, and I'm going to ask Gene to elaborate on it. We found an organization that is a gold depository, say that word correctly, a gold depository, and they have in that gold depository silver and gold coins. If you earn $1,000 through a transaction that you've done through Easy Financial, the contractual company will give that money to that depository to hold
Under
for
your
you,
name. Right.
under your name to hold for you. You then can take that money out in 3 different ways. You could leave it there and let it accrue, let it grow. You could leave it there. You could take it out in gold, and they have something called gold backs, which look like dollar bills, and they have gold infused right physically into them. So you could take them out in gold, or you could take it out in a
Silver.
gold or silver, either one. You could take it out in gold, you could take it out in silver, or you could take it out with a debit card and use it just like you use your debit card today for gasoline, for lunch, for groceries, for clothes for the kids to go back to school. You could use it as a debit card, or you could just take it out in USD. Imagine that. So you have 3 different ways to take your money out. But in the event of a crisis, you will be protected, because what you'll have in there is what Gene keeps referring to as God's money, real gold, real silver, real money. And the USD, the fiat USD, if that crashes, well, everyone
When that
else
crashes.
okay. A lot of people are saying that word, even my guest from last week, Tim, says when it crashes, when it crashes, and he's a purveyor of dollars. He gives out USDs, and he said when it crashes, you will be protected. Now, Gene, will they have to take their money that way, or could they take it any other way?
They can either take it in USD through this facility, or gold or silver, or a debit card. And I think the facility is now offering checks and gold backs. There are really 5 ways they can get at their money, so to speak, or get their money out.
But if they decided they don't trust gold and they just want their money in a good old-fashioned check, can we still pay it to them in a good old-fashioned check?
I don't know. I'll have to ask them that.
You're
I know the
you're
money
gonna-
can go in.
You're going to ask Virginia that. The answer is yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Virginia, help me out here. Can I?
Thank you. It's
can
not
I
my
take-
specialty.
Can I just, if they don't want to trust the gold depository, can I just give them the money the way we normally do? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, guys. Okay, I've gone way, way over my time. I expected to get through this in a half hour. There were too many words to be said to make it fit into a half hour. I always try to squeeze an hour's worth of information into a half hour's time slot. I'm seldom successful. If there are any other questions, or if you have any idea that you would like to get more information about what we're talking about, you can contact Frank at ezfinancialgroupllc.com. You can also, if you promise you will hold it to under an hour, you can call me at 843-492-4938. I'm not going to give you an entire course on finance. I've done that for years and years and years and years. I've given courses, and we had thousands of webinars and thousands of hours of training on what actually money is all about. I'm not going to do
Right.
that anymore, but I
Could I
will
ask
give
you a question, Frank?
Go right ahead.
For my time, you had asked me to be available next Thursday to talk about, once you made this decision, all the details, how much things will cost, how much they'll get paid, you know, how it works in detail. Are you still planning on having me at that webinar at this point on Thursday?
This presentation was part 2 of 3. So part
Okay.
3 of 3 is going to be next Thursday. So guys,
Okay.
give us a week, and we're going to have a lot of calls between now and then. And then next week, this same time, next Thursday, will be part 3 of 3. And we'll be able to get down to the nitty gritty, get down to the factual amounts of money, how money will be divided. And we plan on being exceedingly generous. And that's the way a contractual company is. It's more generous than a standard company because you have less
Overhead.
overhead. That's a good word. Okay.
Thank you, Frank, for having me. I hope I answered all your questions.
If anyone has any quick questions right now for Jean or I, unmute yourself, shout out where you're calling from and who it is, and we'll try to answer your questions quickly. I hear crickets. Okay, as long as I'm...
Eloise.
Eloise, hey, welcome, Eloise. I put a plug in there for you, Eloise.
I heard, thank you. I have a lot of questions. Could we have another webinar just to kind of get more clarity on this? I'm going to do some research myself on this, what do you call it, contractual
company.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to do some more research on it. Years ago, I heard about it when I was back in the day selling mobile homes. I had the owners, they were out of Florida, and they kept talking about a group that they had that didn't pay taxes, and it was something like this.
Oh, Eloise, you pay all the taxes you owe.
Right. If you don't owe any, you don't pay any, but if you owe some, you pay them.
Right. I think the deal was they had somebody that helped them do that, but I'm not going to go and say that they didn't, but I remember it's very similar to what Jean is explaining, but just to clear my mind, if you do go that route, Frank, I want to be sure that I'm making the right decision to go
Eloise,
that route or to stay.
Can you write your questions to Frank so he can put them into the queue to be answered next Thursday?
I will. I'm going to do some research and I'll have some questions.
Great.
Thank you, Jean.
And Eloise, we're not requiring anybody to be a contractual company.
Nope.
All we're saying is we'll be a contractual company, and just like a 1099, we'll issue a contract for you to fulfill whatever job you're going to fulfill, and we'll pay you according to whatever we agreed to pay you. And then we don't tell you how to do your job. You're the contractor. You do the job the best way you know how.
Right. All right. Got it. Thanks.
So we're not causing anyone to do anything different. And I'm going to put in another plug for Eloise. Eloise is our paralegal. So if you do need to set up a LLC, an EIN, even a bank account, if you need to set those up so that you can take advantage of the $100,000 lines of credit, Eloise will be more than happy to help you. You can contact me, and I will forward Eloise's information to you. And Eloise will be that person, that your contact, And
She'll
she
be
will
the
able-
expert, it sounds like, Frank, or that
she-
specialist.
She's already an expert. She's already an
Mhm.
expert. But she'll
Good.
be she'll be, to use Jean's word, she will be your specialist that you'll be contacting. All right. So with that, now I'm going to say thank you all for coming, and we appreciate it. We maintained most of the people. Only a few people dropped off. So that must mean that they were very interested. Thank you very much. God bless, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Frank. Bye-bye.
That would be nice if I could